Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to my kitchen. Today is Saturday. It is November 11th. We're moving right along in November. Of course, the mouthpiece, for some reason, figured out I'm downstairs now, and he's starting to talk. So, before I did the Friendsgiving holiday, and you saw a lot of it, we were on bread baking. Actually, we did pies for the Friendsgiving, and we were baking bread. So I figured we would go back to the bread making machine, and today we're going to do something totally different. We're going to do a cinnamon swirl bread, and we're actually going to do a cinnamon swirl raisin bread. And I just need to make sure I have the whole, well, I don't have whole milk. I have 2% milk. And I need unsalted butter. So I'm looking at all that I have. And we're going to see how this goes, because I may need to get some ingredients for this. So I think I'm gonna look at this and see if I have the ingredients, and then we'll be making it. I'm gonna let them out because they're gonna bug me with it. It is sunny here in Illinois. It's still a little bit cold. It got quite cold last night, but we're doing this. Okay, so this recipe calls for, if you're making a large 2-pound loaf, it calls for 1 1/4 cups of whole milk at room temperature. And this one does want the unsalted butter, room temperature, 1/2-inch pieces, egg, 1 large egg, granulated sugar, unbleached all-purpose flour, 4 cups. What we might do is do 2 cups of all-purpose flour and 2 cups of bread flour, or 4 cups of bread flour, because we don't want our cinnamon raisin bread heavy. So, you know, I'm going to I'm just looking at this. Yeah, I think we can do this, and I think we can do this a little bit different. We're going to do this a little bit different. We're going to change a few things on this recipe. So it's going to use 1 1/4 cups of whole milk. Well, I don't have whole milk in this house. What I do have is 2%. And whole milk and 2% milk are a little bit different in their fat content. And rather than going by, so it uses 1 1/4 cup of whole milk. So I'm going to pour out my It's just about, I'm just going to put just a little bit more milk in there. Okay, so I'm going to leave the milk out for a while so it can get to room temperature. Now, it wants 1 egg at room temperature, and it wants 2 1/2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Well, since this recipe also uses salt, what we're going to do is we're going to just use regular salted butter. Now, I do have unsalted butter. I don't usually keep a lot of unsalted butter in the house just because, you know, I don't use unsalted butter a lot. And while I'm here, let me grab the egg out. And you can tell my refrigerator is still very packed. So I'm going to grab my 1 egg. And I've got my 1 egg out. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed the Friendsgiving videos that I filmed last week. And that'll actually give you a heads up of when you want to start purchasing your stuff for your Thanksgiving. which is a week from this coming Thursday. Today, since today's Saturday, this coming Thursday, Thanksgiving will be a week away. So I'm going to just reiterate a few things. So next Thursday, if you're having a very large group coming to your house, you're going to want to buy a large turkey. You figure 1 to 1.5 pounds of turkey per person. And if you're having 20 or more people, you're going to want to buy a big bird. So you're going to want to buy that on Thursday. Don't wait and say, well, I'll buy it Friday or Saturday or Sunday of next week. Because if you do that, you will not have enough time for it to fully defrost in your refrigerator. So no later than Thursday, if you're serving a large crowd, buy your turkey next Thursday. Now, if you're doing a slightly smaller, if you're having smaller guests and you are going with the smaller bird, Saturday or Sunday are the days that you want to buy your turkey. So, I'm going to let these sit out. I'm going to go over the ingredients really fast for the cinnamon swirl. It's 1 1/4 cups of whole milk at room temperature. It's 2.5 tablespoons of unsalted butter, room temperature, 1/2-inch pieces, 1 large egg at room temperature, 1 teaspoon kosher salt. Well, if you're using salted butter, you can eliminate the kosher salt or drop it down to 1/4 teaspoon. Uses 1.5 teaspoons of granulated sugar, 4 cups of unbleached all-purpose flour, and 2 teaspoons of yeast active dry instant or bread machine. We're going to use the bread machine one. And then for the cinnamon swirl, it's 1/3 of a cup of granulated sugar, 2.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, and 1 1/4 cups of raisins. And the raisins are optional, but if you're going to go with the cinnamon swirl, I think it's best to add the raisins to it because that'll give you a nice raisin bread. Now, this is a little bit different because once you get the dough mixed and resting, you're gonna prepare your cinnamon swirl. We'll get to that when we do this. So I'm gonna give this maybe a couple of hours to sit out and get to room temperature, and we'll be back. That's gonna be our video for this weekend, is gonna be the cinnamon swirl raisin bread. So stay tuned. Okay, hi all, welcome back to my kitchen. We're gonna get started making the cinnamon raisin bread. And you'll see my husband just grabbed an old Navy bag. We went shopping. Can you take this down with you? Okay, so my milk and my butter have sat out for about an hour. They're not really room temperature, but we can make them room temperature. I'm going to zap the milk for about 30 seconds in the microwave just to speed this up a little bit. I'm just going to plug in our bread making machine. Now you guys are going to see a change coming up in the kitchen. I ordered a couple of new appliances. One of the new appliances is and I'll put this down so you can see it, the toaster oven. I'm going to replace the toaster oven. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with our toaster oven, but it is starting to show its age and the fact that it's been used non-stop since the day we got it. So, let's get this started. And we need cinnamon. And I'm going to grab our raisins. And I should have a box of raisins open depending on where I put them. Bob, do you know where I put the open box of raisins? And they may actually be in the living room. Now, you're not going to put, pardon me, I'm a little hiccuping. You're not going to put the raisins in right away. Let me see if I put them over here. And I did not. Okay, so the next place to check would be the pantry. So I'm just looking up here to see if I have any raisins, and I don't. Okay, now we're going to play hunt for the raisins. Oh, they're right next to the bread making machine. So I do have the raisins right here. Like I said, you're not going to use those at first. And I'm going to move you guys onto this side so you guys can see what's going on. So you're going to put all of the ingredients in the order that they're listed. So we're going to do 1 1/4 cup of milk first. And let's take this out of the pan so that we don't mess up. Oh, that's right. There we go. Okay, so I've got my paddle in. And I just need to clean this off a little bit. There's a little bit of flour that I didn't get off of the thing. And you want to make sure your bread pans are nice and clear. So that's, okay, so we got the whole milk, room temperature, 1 1/4 cups. So that's 1 1/4 cups is going into the bread making machine. Now it wants unsalted butter, room temperature, 1/2 inch pieces, and 2 1/2 tablespoons. So that's 2 and about 1/2. So if you can eyeball it, okay, that's about 2 1/2 tablespoons, and it wants it into 1/2 inch pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quarter it. And then I'm just going to quarter it again. So that's about 1/2 inch piece. Bring you guys in a little bit closer so you can see that. So we're going to do that right now. And this is a perfect bread for those cold winter mornings that you can serve in the morning that everybody is going to seem to like. I'm just going to cut these in 1/2 inch pieces. I'm putting them in there. Okay, so that's the butter. Then you can put the rest of the butter in because you won't use that. It wants 1 extra large egg. And pardon me, I'm on this side. I'm just rinsing my fingers from the butter. So we want to do our 1 egg. That's our 1 egg. Okay, and put a little bit of egg yolk on the countertop. Okay, so now it wants kosher salt, but since we used salted butter, I'm just going to use a little bit of kosher salt, and that's about 1/4 teaspoon. Yes, mouth. Okay, now it wants granulated sugar. It wants 1 1/2 tablespoons. So I'm going to move you guys over so you can see that. I'm going to grab my sugar as well as my salt. I'm also going to grab my measuring cup. And it's very important, leave your sugar after you're done using it. Leave it out because you're going to use it again for the sugar swirls. Edward, yeah, we're going to go upstairs in a few. Now this recipe, you do need to make sure that when it does its second rise, you're going to take the paddle out and you're actually going to roll out the dough. And that's when you're going to add your raisins and your cinnamon swirl to the dough. So this is going to use 1 1/2 teaspoons of, 1 1/2 tablespoons of sugar. Okay, so Ooh, and I need to fill this sugar jar. That's my half, and my, I did say tablespoons. Yep, tablespoons. So that was the half half, and then this is the 1 tablespoon. Now this is in addition to the 1/3 cup of sugar that you're going to use later on. So that's the 1 tablespoon. Okay, now it's going to use 4 cups of unbleached flour, or all-purpose flour. You know what? We'll see how this recipe goes with the unbleached all-purpose flour. Usually I would use bread flour for this, but since it's calling for unbleached all-purpose flour, we're going to do that. We're going to see how that goes. So and it wants 4 cups for the, and this makes it 2 pounds. Oop, I almost put it in. Oh, I did put it in there. Okay. Actually, let me get the sugar. Actually, let me dump this out. Unplug this. Just need to wipe the inside out. Sometimes that happens if you're in a hurry and not paying attention to where things go. So I might have put the half a tablespoon. So I'm going to add a half a tablespoon to that, just in case I didn't. So we have 1 cup of flour in there. Let's get our 2nd cup. Okay. That's 2. And that's 3. And that's our 4th cup right there. So now we're going to use 2 teaspoons of yeast, active dry instant or bread machine. And I said we're going to use the bread machine yeast. So let me grab that out of the refrigerator, if I can find that. That's my active, there's my black. Now with this recipe, you are going to want to make sure after it's fully cooled down and you slice it, you are going to want to refrigerate this bread. This bread will not last all that long on the shelf because it's got no additives to it. So we want 2 teaspoons of bread machine flour. So that's 1. And that's 2. Okay, so now we're going to we put all the dough ingredients in the order that they were listed. We have the kneading pan, and we're going to secure this into our bread making machine. And we're going to lock that in. Now what we need to do is we need to plug this back in. And we're going to program it to the white setting. So we're going to do the white setting. And it's on number 1. We're going to change the side to a 2-pounder. And we want to do it about a medium color. You don't want to go dark with this. Actually, let's do it on the light. Okay? And we're going to hit the start button. It's going to go through 2 kneads. But like I said, on the 2nd knead, we're going to come back. And we're going to do our cinnamon swirl. Now, I just am double checking to make sure, yeah, our cinnamon swirl has our cinnamon. So our cinnamon and sugar will stay out. You can go ahead, leave your flour out because you might need to add a little bit of flour to this. So it's always a good idea to leave your flour out. And we're going to let this go for about an hour. It's going to take about an hour before we do our cinnamon swirls. So I'm going to stop the video for now. I'll be back in a while. Okay, it says, while the dough is mixing and resting, prepare the cinnamon swirl. So in a small bowl, we're going to combine the cinnamon swirl ingredients and we're going to reserve. So let's get our cinnamon swirl. And you don't need a large bowl for this. A small bowl will work. So I'm just going to grab out my measuring bowls. And I'm just going to use a really small bowl for this. So the cinnamon swirl is 1/3 of a cup of sugar, which is right here. I need to add a little bit more sugar to my, okay, there's the, and 2.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. So 2.5 teaspoons. So that's one. That's 1 teaspoon. It's 1 and like a little bit more than 1/4. That's 2.5. Okay. And then the raisins is 1/4 cup. Or 1 1/4 cup, I'm sorry. It's 1 1/4 cup of raisins. And we're just going to mix the cinnamon and the sugar together. So you want your cinnamon swirl to look like this. Now, you don't need to mix the raisins in right now. Have them close by, and I think, let's see how much raisins. Yeah, that should be enough. So a half a package should be enough raisins. If you want to add even more raisins, you can. I don't think it has to be an exact. It says 1 1/4 cups, but we'll do that. We'll have this sitting right next to it. So just like your bread making machine do its thing on the second rise when it beeps is when you want to roll it out. Add your cinnamon swirl and your raisins to it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to roll it into a rectangle that's about 1/4 inch thick and 16 inches in length. You're going to sprinkle the surface with the cinnamon swirl mix. You're going to roll the dough into a tight singular. So basically what you're doing is similar to a jelly roll, is you're going to roll it from one short side to the other, and then you're going to tuck the ends underneath the dough and fit it back into the bread pan with the padded needle, with the kneading paddle removed. And then you're going to press the start stop to continue. So, we're going to let the machine do its first raise. Like I said, I'll be back and I'll show you what to do when we get to that step. So I'll be back in a bit.